Okay, good morning, students. So let's start today's lecture. Today's lecture number 7 on the subject cryptography and system security. We have already seen a lot of ciphers. If you have gone through the videos, you must have noticed that we have already completed Caesar cipher, followed by Playfair cipher, then Hill cipher, and Wigner cipher. Okay, so we have seen what are these ciphers, how are they different from each other, and one of the ciphers I had started in the last lecture, uh, which is basically Vernam cipher. So I had just given you the introduction of Vernam cipher, and today I will discuss in detail what exactly Vernam cipher is and how is its application, which is also called as one-time pad, which is basically a small modification to the Vernam cipher, and how is it different from the Vernam cipher. So this is the first topic for the day, and after that, I will start straight away with the different type of ciphers, which is what we call as transposition ciphers. If you remember, initially I had shown you with the help of a tree diagram that there are two types of ciphers: substitution cipher and transposition ciphers. Substitution can be further divided into monoalphabetic and polyalphabetic. So Vernam and one-time pad are the last types of polyalphabetic ciphers from our syllabus. Fine. So I will just give a quick brief or quick recap. Monoalphabetic cipher consists of Caesar ciphers, whereas polyalphabetic ciphers in that particular topic we had seen Playfair, Hale cipher, and Wigner cipher. Clear? Any doubts so far? So Vernam cipher and one-time pad are the last type of this particular cipher, which is what we call as polyalphabetic substitution cipher. So after completing this topic today, we will be jumping to the transposition ciphers. Again, it has got two types. Let me show you the diagram once again. Yeah, over here. We have already seen Caesar cipher, Playfair cipher, Hill cipher, and Wigner cipher. Okay, so Wigner is also done. The only thing left is Vernam cipher, and after we are done with this, we will straight away start with transposition ciphers, and it has got three types. Fine. So, any doubts so far? Any confusion regarding what we have done so far? You can ask me, or I will be starting it in 1 or 2 minutes maximum. Fine. So, kindly let me know. Still, the count is less. If you're having any doubts, you still have time because I'm on the assignments by today evening. So assignment is basically based on these questions and these topics only. Fine. So let's start today's lecture. The topic for the day is Vernam cipher. Yeah, correct. Vernam cipher and then one-time pad. So first of all, I will just quickly give you a brief of what this Vernam cipher is all about. As you can see in this diagram, I had already explained this in the previous lecture. Vernam cipher consists of a stream of plain text and a stream of keys. So when we take the XOR of the corresponding bits of those plain text and key bits, we get some value which is what we call as a ciphertext. As you can see over here, this is the plain text bit P of I, this is the key bit K of I, and the result that we are going to get is the ciphertext bit C of I. Correct? Decryption is exactly opposite. As we know that XOR is nothing but a bitwise operation. So if I XOR PI and KI, I will get CI. Similarly, if I XOR CI with KI, I will again get back the same PI. Am I clear? It is basically like this only. A XOR B is equal to C. Then what we can do is we can do C XOR B. We will get A only. Yes or no? Operations are interchangeable. Fine. So that is what is the beauty of this cipher. Because if we have got the result, we can combine it or XOR it with the key, and we will get back the plain text. It is very simple in design. So let's have a look. What are the components? Pi is nothing but the ith binary digit of plain text. Ki is ith binary digit of key, and Ci is ith binary digit of ciphertext. I had already shown you how to get the binary equivalent. I will again give a small brief of that. Whatever is the plain text, you convert that plain text into the ASCII code. Now, what you need to do is it's up to you. In the exam, if it is asked, then what you can do is just remember the uh, decimal value or the ASCII value of the characters from where it is starting. For example, capital A, small a, and number one. Okay, so at least remember the values corresponding to these according to the ASCII table. So that if you know this, the lower bound and upper bound, you can simply add or subtract 26 from these and get the corresponding ASCII value. Am I making sense? So it's not required to by heart the entire ASCII table. If you only remember the values of small a, capital A, and the numeric digit 1, the starting, the lower bound, then also it will be fine. Because over here, what we are doing is we are first of all converting the plain text to the ASCII equivalent, and according to the value of the ASCII, we are converting that into binary equivalent. Because this cipher, Burnham cipher, is not working on the decimal equivalence, it is working on the binary equivalence. Clear? So first step is convert the plain text into ASCII. Second step is take the binary equivalent of that ASCII number, and we will get the key. If we are provided with the key, well and good. If we are not provided with the key, what you need to do is you need to have a key of at least the same size. Key of at least the same size. So over here, how many bits are there? 7 into 3, 21 bits. So take a key of 21 bits arbitrarily. Assume any value, any binary value. Fine, a long key stream. And using that key stream, you have to generate the ciphertext. Am I making sense? Yes or no? Kindly let me know. If you have any doubts, kindly let me know. So basically, in the exam, you have to convert the character into the ASCII equivalent, and from that ASCII you have to convert that into the binary equivalent, so you will get your plain text. Fine. So in this case, this is your plain text, so this is nothing but the stream of plain text. You have to you have to read it like this. You will get the stream of plain text of 21 characters, if I'm not wrong. So you have to take a key of minimum 21 characters so that you can XOR, because it is one by one, right? Bitwise operation. So 21 bits of this plain text will be XORed with 21 bits of the key, and we will get the ciphertext. The entire process in the reverse order needs to be performed for decryption. Is it clear? Any further explanation needed? Then kindly let me know. Can we move ahead? B division. Okay, fine. Now, you only tell me what could be the difficulties or drawbacks of this particular cipher. Any idea? As you can see over here, what could be the drawback of this cipher? There are very few drawbacks, but still they are considerable. So kindly go through it. Just think of it. What could be the drawback of this cipher? Because as you can see over here, as I had told you in the last lecture also when we met last time, this cipher was designed primarily as a hardware. So obviously hardware runs out of resources. In this case, the keys and the plain text were all in the form of papers or punch holes. So we can't have an infinite number of keys. Yes or no? We can't have an infinite tape full of key values, 0, 1, 1, 0, whatever. So there is one of the major, there is one of this major limitations that the resources may run out eventually. So the key may at some point of time deplete. So what can we do then? In such a case, what happens? Whenever the key depletes, that is again repeated. Am I making sense? As you have seen in the previous cipher also, Vigna cipher also. Once the key is depleted, it is again repeated from the same pattern. Am I clear? So if I start with 1001, after the key depletes or after the key exhausts, I will again start with 1001. So what will happen then? Kindly think of it and let me know. Class, be proactive. Give me answers. I'm not getting answers from you. So what will be the drawback of this? Yes, A division, B division. Come on, give me answers fast. Yes. Am I audible? Kindly let me know. Give me the answers. Okay, fine. I'm explaining once again. As you can see in this diagram, it is basically the patent diagram, okay, of this Varnam cipher. What exactly happens is we have to calculate the plain text in terms of binary numbers or binary digits. Similarly, we need a key for that corresponding plain text. Yes or no? If we want to have the ciphertext, we have got the plain text, but we need the key also so that we ultimately get the ciphertext. Yes or no? Is my voice audible or is it not? Kindly let me know because I'm not getting answers from you people. So this basically demotivates me to continue further. Okay. If I'm audible, then you should answer, right? If I'm not getting answers, I will pick up names and call out names one by one. So be prepared. Okay. So let me know. If we have a plain text, okay, in the form of binary values, we want to convert that plain text into ciphertext. So we need some sort of a key, and that key is being provided as a stream of binary digits, right? So if we are implementing this particular cipher in form of a hardware, then at one point of time we may run out of papers because at that time when this particular cipher was introduced, the keys were made using punch holes in papers, right? So at some point of time we may run out of papers because dot matrix printers. You have seen dot matrix printers. They take a lot of time to print your output. Same way we can think of it like that. It's basically a paper which are punched at regular intervals, and that indicates the key. So at some point of time we may run out of those keys. So what will happen that time? That is what my question is all about. Are you getting it now? If we run out of the keys, then what is the solution? Yes, now I want answers. Correct. We need to repeat the keys because ultimately we are not having the provision of adding one more paper or one more key because we have run out of those keys. So at that point of time, what we can do is whatever key we have already used, we will again reuse that inside the machine. And this is what we call as reusing the keys. Correct? It is not suitable for a long text. For a shorter text, we can use such a machine. We can't use it for a long text. Otherwise, what happens? We may need to reuse the key again and again, and this will leave out a pattern. This pattern can be exploited by the attacker to launch an attack on my machine, on my cipher. Am I clear? The same thing is written over here. Just have a look. The essence of this technique is the means of construction of the key. Varnam proposed the use of a running loop of tape that eventually repeated the key. So that, in fact, the system worked with a very long but repeating keyword. Am I clear? This is the major drawback of this cipher, which is what we call as a Varnam cipher. Fine. Is it clear now? Kindly let me know. Okay, fine. So let us study one-time pad, which is basically an application of this Varnam cipher. It is again a Varnam cipher only, but with few minor changes. Just have a look. What they did is, what this particular inventor Joseph Mobon did is, instead of using a long key, obviously they are using a long key, but what they did is they used a totally random key which was discarded after the plain text is encrypted. This is a very minute, minor change, but a very effective one. Again, have a look. This particular scheme produces a random output that bears no statistical relationship to the plain text. Why is it so? Because as you can see that the plain text is the key is not getting repeated, so you won't get any statistical patterns as opposed to the previous one. In this case, we are having a very long key, okay, that has to be as long as the message. Am I clear? So if my message is of 30 bits in size, I will take 30 bits of the plain text, sorry, of the key, and I will discard that key once the encryption process is over. I will again repeat once more. What I will do is, what this cipher does is, I will first of all count the length of the plain text that we had just now seen while discussing this topic. I will first of all count the length of the plain text, like for example, 21 characters. Then I will take any 21 random binary digits, fine, and make a key out of it, encrypt the plain text using that key, and throw away that key. Am I clear? That is where I'm coming through. Throwing away the key is the major challenge in this particular cipher, because we first of all need to send that key to the receiver also and then throw the key. Otherwise, the receiver won't be able to decrypt it back. Fine. This is one of the major challenges in this particular cipher. Otherwise, this particular cipher is basically unbreakable. As you can see, if I'm totally making it random, because it will be having no statistical inference, it will have no statistical patterns, because every single time I'm encrypting with a totally random key and throwing away the key. So the main concern over here is, before you throw away the key, just make sure you send it to the receiver once. Otherwise, it will have no meaning. The receiver also won't be able to decrypt it. Yes, it will generate a random key every single time. Am I clear? Am I making sense? Yes or no? Kindly let me know. This algorithm is very simple. The very first thing, if you want to create this as a program, the very first thing you need to do is you need to calculate the length of the plain text in terms of binary digits. Okay, and generate a random key of that length. It is very simple. You can do it using any programming language. Then XOR the patterns and make a provision of sending that key to the receiver. Now, if you think of it as a mini project sort of thing, what you can do is you can create a program for this, and whatever random key you are getting, you can mail it to the receiver. You can send an email to the receiver. You can try it on your own as a practical, as an experiment. What you can do is create a program for this, create random keys, encrypt the message, send the send the key to the receiver, okay, via email. That also we can incorporate if you're using Python or Java. Okay, so once the receiver gets the email, receiver will basically have the key. That key can be used to decrypt it and get back the plain text. I'm just giving exercises for you to perform. Am I clear? Yes or no? So this is the advantage of this one-time pad over Varnam cipher. The only thing over here is the feasibility. Can it be practical? Can it be done practically? That is the main concern. Otherwise, this cipher is one of the best ciphers and it cannot be broken. Fine. Just have a look. This is an example given in front of you. Basically, this is subjected to cryptanalysis. Some sort of cipher breaking is happening over here. As you can see, this is a ciphertext. Okay. This is a ciphertext we are having, and the attacker is trying to break this ciphertext. And this is the key. Somehow the attacker has got this key, or somehow the attacker is trying this key on this ciphertext. Basically, cryptanalysis or brute forcing is nothing but trying different combinations of keys on the ciphertext and trying to get a meaningful plain text. Yes or no? So this is nothing but a cryptanalysis shown to you. The attacker has got access to the ciphertext. The attacker will try to apply different combinations of keys on that ciphertext so as to get a meaningful plain text. But in this case, if you see, if the attacker applies this particular key to the ciphertext, he is getting some answer. Mr. Mustard with the candlestick in the hall. Obviously, doesn't make any grammatically correct sentence, but still some meaningful sentence is getting created. Similarly, on the same ciphertext, if the attacker is applying another key, he is again getting some meaningful sentence. Miss Scarlet with the knife in the library. Now, can you tell me which is the actual key? Because both of these cryptanalysis attempts are giving me some sort of meaningful sentence. Yes or no? Kindly have a look at it once again. I'm repeating once again. The attacker has got access to the ciphertext. The attacker applies different combinations of keys, random combinations, and tries to get some meaningful text. In this case, both the keys are giving me some sort of meaningful text. So both can be correct. Yes, right? So, uh, correct, because we don't get any hidden meaning, we don't get any statistical patterns out of it. So it will be really difficult or nearly impossible for the attacker to come to a conclusion whether the first key is correct or the second key is correct. Fine. This is why we say that this particular cipher, one-time pad, is considered to be the most secured cipher. The only concern is its practicality. Can it be implemented in practical sense? Okay, so a lot of work has been done on this. You can take it up as a research project if you want to move further in cryptography. You can think of it as a foundation. You can make some changes to it. You can modify the algorithm and make it more robust, more secure. That's entirely up to you, but this is how the things work. Am I clear? So this is what we call as the one-time pad. It's considered to be one of the most secure algorithm. Only drawback is the transportation of the keys. The keys should reach the receiver in a more secured fashion, otherwise the entire uh, cipher will be at stake. Fine. Yeah. If you're having any doubts, kindly let me know. Okay. This was a topic which was left from the last lecture, and now let's start with today's topic. Okay, so we have already seen Vernam cipher now, and now we are going to start with the remaining type of ciphers, which are transposition ciphers. Now, the basic difference between a substitution cipher and a transposition cipher, any idea? What could be the basic difference between substitution and transposition? Just try to read the names, you will get an answer. Substitution is basically substituting one value with other value. Fine. What could be transposition? Hush, bits are changing in both the ciphers. Correct. Exchanging, or we can say permuting, changing positions. Correct. The plain text bits remain the same. We simply need to change the positions of the plain text bits and make it jumbled up. Jumbled sentences, jumbled words you have seen. Same thing. Fine. But in the case of substitution, as we have seen in all these ciphers so far, Caesar, Playfair, Hill, Wigner, Vernam, in all these ciphers, we had replaced the character with some other character. But in the case of the ciphers we are going to learn now, that is the rail fence cipher, the single transposition and double transposition, we are going to see that the characters are jumbled up using the same alphabets of the plain text. We are not going to add anything else apart from the characters already present. Fine. So these are the two objectives of any cipher. The first one is substitution, and second one is transposition. That is permutation and what we can say confusion. These are the two terms we are going to learn later on. Fine. So let's start with the very first cipher. That is what we call as the rail fence cipher. Again, the transposition ciphers are of two types: keyed transposition and keyless transposition. Whereas in the case of keyless transposition, we don't have any key, as the name suggests. In the case of keyed transposition, we have two classifications, single and double. So we are going to learn what are these in detail. So let's start with the very first, that is keyless transposition ciphers, and its example is the uh, rail fence cipher. Fine. Just let me dictate this definition for you. A transposition cipher is a method of encryption by which the positions held by the units of plain text are shifted according to a regular system, so that the cipher text constitutes a permutation of the plain text. Permutation is nothing but scrambling up or jumbling the sentences or jumbling the characters. Am I clear? This is what I had explained during the explanation over here. Fine. So whenever we are jumbling the characters of the plain text to make a different sort of a text, that is what we call a cipher text, that entire process is known as transposition. Clear? So let's start with the rail fence cipher. Any idea? Have anyone of you performed this or studied about this? Has any one of you done this? Rail fence cipher? No. Okay. Okay, fine, no issues. So let's see how it looks like. First of all, you must have seen rail fences, right? Zigzag patterns of wires and wire frames. Similar to that, that's why this cipher has got the name as rail fence cipher. As you can see, what we do is the very first thing is we write down the plain text message as a sequence of diagonals. So over here, as you can see, the plain text message is come home tomorrow. What we are doing is we are writing that plain text as a sequence of diagonals. C in the first row, O in the second row, M in the first row, E in the second row, and so on. Is it clear? This is how we write the plain text for encryption. Clear so far? Very simple. Yes. Okay, fine. Next is what we do is the second step is we read the plain text written in step number one as a sequence of rows. So what will happen is now my encrypted text will be the complete first row, followed by complete second row. It is very simple to implement. As you can see, whatever is the plain text, we divide that into two rows and alternatively we write the plain text diagonal wise. Fine. So C O M E H O and so on. First row, second row, first row, second row. We alternate between the two rows and write the plain text. And for encryption, what we do is we read the first row and then the second row. So it becomes C M H M T M R O and O E O E O O R W. Fine. So this is my ciphertext. Is it clear? It's very simple to implement and very simple to break also. But this is one of the basic ciphers, so we need to learn that. Any confusion with this? Yes or no? Fine. So now you only tell me how to decrypt it. Any one of you. Kindly give me the answers. Correct by 2. Okay, divide by 2. What else? Is any point you are missing? Is there any point that you are missing? Middle alphabet. Okay, fine. Just assume that you are having a character, a ciphertext. What is the very first thing? We need to calculate the length of that ciphertext first. Yes or no? Because we need to divide it into two parts, right? Right. So we need to find the midpoint as Harsh is mentioning. So the very first thing is we need to calculate the as Rishabh is also saying that we need to find the middle alphabet. So for that we need to first of all calculate the length of the ciphertext that we have got. In this case, the length is 16, I guess. So we know that the middle character will be 8. That is 8 and 8. Two rows will be formed. But what if we are having an odd length ciphertext? What to do in that case? If we are getting a ciphertext with a length of odd characters, then what we will do? Because we can't have zero point 0.5, right? We can't have 8.5. If no random, we can't take. In this case, we can't take any random value. Correct. One character extra in the first row, or we can say one character extra in the left hand side. That is, if we are having 17 characters instead of 16 characters, we will have 9 characters in the first row and 8 characters in the bottom row. Am I clear? So if you are having, correct Rishabh, upper row will be having more alphabets, one more alphabet. Fine. If you see in this example, if I say come home tomorrow with an extra W, that W will be over here. Right? Same thing will happen. So we'll have one extra W over here and the rest will be the second row. This is how it works. Am I clear? Fine now. That is what I have explained over here. Just see the explanation. Count the number of characters in the ciphertext. I will obviously give this PDF so it will be easy for you to recollect it whenever later you're having your exams. Count the number of characters in the ciphertext. Divide it into two halves. If number of characters are odd, then add one character more in the upper half. Example I've already given. Write the characters of respective halves along the rows. Read them diagonally. This is important. These two last points. Write the characters of the respective halves along the rows. Now you have to write them along the rows like this. Okay. And you have to read them diagonally. Same way. First of all, you have got the ciphertext. This is your ciphertext. You divide it into two parts. So this will be your middle point. You write them row by row. First row, second row. And now you read them diagonally. In the previous case, you have written them diagonally. In this case, you have written them, but while decryption, you have to read them diagonally. Am I clear? Is this concept clear now? And then you will get the answer. Come home tomorrow. Is it clear? V division? Yes, fine. So it's very simple to implement and very easy to break also, because you know that if you divide the ciphertext into two parts and then write them diagonally in two rows, it will be very easy for you to crack it. But still, this is the fundamentals uh, of a transposition cipher, so we need to learn this. Fine. A question may be asked on this for 5 marks or 10 marks. If it is asked for 10 marks, two or three examples might be there for you to solve. Fine. Okay. So let's move ahead. We still have a lot of time left. So let's move ahead with the different type of transposition ciphers that we call as, there are two types. Both are called as simple columnar transposition cipher, but one is single transposition and the other is double transposition. So don't make mistake in the names. Both are simple columnar transposition ciphers only, but one is with single transposition and the other one is with double transposition. Am I clear? So that's why I have written over here as single double. Fine. Any confusion? Okay. So let's start. One more thing I forgot. After each module, there will be a short 30 minutes MCQ test, as I had done in the previous subject also. In the final year also, I practice the same thing. After every module, there will be a short test based upon the concepts from that module. This will eventually help you in the long run. Fine. So once this module is completed, the very next day there will be a 30 minutes test, either at the beginning of the lecture or at the end of the next lecture. Fine. So prepare accordingly. I'm giving you a lot of time. We still need 2, 3 lectures more for this module to complete. So by then you must be having a grip of the first module. Fine. Okay. Any issues with it? Kindly let me know. And this basically will be like a question bank sort of thing. You can use these questions later on. As explained, this will help you in the longer run. Fine. So let's start with the next topic, which is what we call a simple columnar transposition cipher. What happens in this cipher is, it's again based upon some concepts which are derived from the rail fence cipher only. What it does is, now don't confuse this with your Playfair cipher, although they look similar, but they are not. Okay. We are just starting with the very first module. Eventually, when you will reach third module, fourth module, everything will get mixed up. Similar to your TCS subject, we will learn about n number of concepts, and at the end, you will feel like this concept was taught earlier also. So don't get confused. Have a crystal clear understanding. If you want, you can prepare your own short notes, write the differentiating points about each cipher separately, so that you will come to know that this cipher is different from the existing ciphers. Fine. Okay, so let's start with this cipher. What this cipher is all about, let me read it first. We write the plain text message row by row, okay, in a rectangle of a predefined size depending upon the key. So in this case, this is the key given to you, zebras, whatever you want to call it. Now you can see some numbering beneath it. Can anyone let me know how this number came? These are not random numbers, huh? Can anyone let me know how this number came out of nowhere? A key is given, zebras. Correct. Jimit is correct. It is alphabetically arranged. Fine, Deep, Dhruv, Harsh, Isha, correct. So A is given an order of 1, B as 2. Following the alphabetical sequence, we get the key as this. So this is what we call as the transposition or the key. If you see, while giving you the introduction, I had told you that it is transpositions are based upon two types, keyless and keyed. We've already studied the railfen cipher. The keyed transposition consists of single and double. So in this case, this is the key. Fine. And the jumbling up of what we are doing over here is, this is what we call as the computation. Fine. Am I clear? What we need to do is, we first of all need to write the plain text message row by row in a rectangle of a predefined size based upon a key, and then read the message column by column. So when we are going to encrypt it, we are going to encrypt this column first, that is read this column first, then this, and so on. Is it clear? Let me show you how it is done with this example. The example is plain text is basically we are discovered, flee at once. This is our plain text. So what we need to do is we need to have a matrix of size 6 columns. Why 6? Because we have the keyword of 6 characters. Am I clear? Yes. Fine. So as the key is of size 6, we will have a matrix of 6 columns. Next is the same thing I have written. What you need to do is you first of all write the entire plain text row by row in sequence. That is, we are discovered, flee at once. And after that, we need to add some random characters because we need to make this a complete matrix. It will be a matrix of 5 by 6, I guess, 5 rows and 6 columns, right? So we need to add it. If you remember, we had already done a concept called as traffic padding. Kindly revise those topics. Either you can check the previous recordings, or you can, if you want to quickly revise the concepts, you can simply go through the short videos that I've already shared for week 1 and week 2. It will clear the concepts. So what we are doing is we are adding some random characters just to make the entire decryption process or the cryptanalysis process difficult. I have, as I have discussed time and again, that encryption should be as simple as possible, but the decryption should be the difficult part or the difficult aspect. So we are trying to make it as difficult as possible. Only the receiver, intended receiver, will be able to decrypt it. Otherwise, no one else should be able to decrypt it. Am I clear? Fine. So you can use any characters to make it difficult to understand. You can use lowercase, uppercase. It's up to you. Fine. So what we have done is we have written the plain text row by row. Now, according to the formula, we have to start encrypting using the column order. So what we are going to do is we are going to consider this first column, that is wherever 1 is written. So we have simply written the key on top of that matrix. So wherever 1 is written, that will be my first block of plain text. So it will be E, V, L, N, E, followed by the next block, that is wherever 2 is mentioned, it will be A, C, D, T, K, and so on. Am I clear? Any doubt with this? That is what I have written over here. Here the characters Q, K, J, E, U are added as dummy characters to make the guessing even more difficult. So at the end, we will get the ciphertext as this. Yeah, Harshman. Okay, I will explain once again. What we have done is we have got a key. Either the key will be given in terms of alphabets, words basically, or they will simply give you this number. The number is important, right? So we convert that alphabet sort of keyword into a numeric keyword based upon their sequence, that is the alphabetical sequence. Fine. So based upon the alphabetical sequence, we need to convert that keyword. And once we get the keyword, we will get the idea of how many columns must be there in the matrix. So as we are having 6 characters in the keyword, we will have a matrix of 6 columns. That is what is shown over here. Then we will simply start writing the plain text row by row inside that matrix. If we run out of the plain text, we can simply add some bogus characters, but make sure you don't repeat the same character again and again. Then it will simply be waste because the attacker will simply know that this is nothing but some random characters being added at the end. So try to make it as random as possible. Try different characters. You can use A, J, P, Q, whatever you want, but try to keep all these characters as different. Okay, once it is done, you need to start encrypting the message. And for encryption, what you need to do is you need to start with the very first column over here. Okay, the first column, you simply need to write the keyword on top of that column, and whichever is your first column, you start with that. So it becomes E, V, L, N, E. So you have to read it column wise. Fine. Similarly, second column, A, C, D, T, K, and so on. So you have to complete this 6 times, and at the end, you will get the final ciphertext. I have written this as separate blocks, but you have to write this in a sequence. Fine. Any confusion with this? Any issues, any doubts, you can ask me. So encryption part is very simple. How to decrypt it? Now you only tell me how to decrypt it. Correct. According to the number of the key, fill the matrix. Fine. As I have already told you, in each and every cipher that you are going to learn, the main aspect becomes the key. The key has to be shared properly. Once the key is shared between the sender and the receiver, we already have seen the network security model. If you remember, there was a concept of secure key exchange, right? That is why I have already covered that topic prior, because there has to be a secure key exchange using which you have to exchange the keys with the receiver. The receiver knows that we are having the keyword as zebras. Okay, so the receiver will have its have the same key with him also, him or her also. Fine. So according to the same key, it will be written column wise. Correct. It will be written column wise. So what attacker does is, sorry, not the attacker. What the receiver does is, the receiver simply writes down the key on a piece of paper, whatever column he received first. Okay, okay. But there is one catch over here. How will the receiver come to know how many characters must be present in the first column? Any idea? Now you only tell me. I know that it is having 5 characters, but how would the receiver know that this particular column over here will consist of 5 characters only and not 10? Correct, Jimit. The thing is, whatever is the length of that ciphertext, first calculate that and divide by the length of the key. Am I clear? B division. Because the receiver only has the keyword with him. The receiver also doesn't have the number of values in one column. So for that, what needs to be done is calculate the length of the ciphertext first, divide that length with the key length. So it will be total, I guess, how many are there? 30, right? So it will be 30 by 5. So it will be 6 characters, if I'm not wrong. 30 by 6, that is 5 characters. Fine? Yes or no? Total characters are 30 and the key length is 6. So it will be 5 characters in one column. Now what needs to be done is we have to start writing 5 characters one by one in the columns mentioned. So as the receiver has already written the key over here, as you can see, this is the key. The receiver has to write the key on a piece of paper or computer, whatever is available, and start 5 characters at a time. So the first 5 characters are E, V, L, N, E. So those 5 characters will be written under this column number 1. Am I clear? So that will be written like this: E, V, L, N, E. Obviously, both the matrices will be same only, but you have to show it one by one. Ready? Start. Then the next will be column number 2. So the next 5 characters will be written row by row in column number 2, and then 3, and then 4, 5, and 6. Am I clear? And finally, they will be read like this. Basically like this. Fine. Although this looks a lot similar to Playfair, but these are totally different. Am I clear now? Is it making sense? Kindly let me know. If you want an explanation further, I can repeat it if you want. So the very crucial point over here is you have to calculate the length of the ciphertext. Once you get the length of the ciphertext, divide that by the length of the key, and you will get how many characters or alphabets must be present in each column. So based upon that count, you start filling up the columns with those characters sequentially, and ultimately you have to read the characters row by row, and you will get the plain text back. Obviously, the plain text that you will receive will have the extra 5 characters at the end, but it doesn't make any sense because those are random characters or dummy characters. The only thing which matters is we are discovered at once, flee at once. Fine. This sort of messages were actually being shared during the prehistoric war period. They used to share messages like this. Okay, I will show you one more example with the help of the double transposition, and you will come to know what exactly is different between single and double columnar transposition. Is it clear? Can I move ahead? I have one more topic to cover. Dhruv, that is what I told you, na? The key exchange should happen early. The key exchange should happen prior. Once the receiver comes to once the sender uh, establishes that this is the key that I am going to use, that key has to be shared with the receiver, and then the communication should happen. If you remember, we had already seen the network security model, the reference security model. In that, I have already shown you there was a component called as secure key exchange. That is what comes into picture over here. Once you create the keys, share it with the intended receiver. It can be through any secure medium. Okay. The best that we know is through emails. Just to simplify things, we can use emails, send an email to the receiver, get an acknowledgement for that, and then you can proceed with your communication. Fine. Yeah, they can even share it before encryption. Okay, fine. So let's move ahead with the second type, that is the double transposition cipher. That is again a simple columnar one only, but transposition is doubled. What happens is it again uses the same thing only. You have to first of all get the result of a single transposition. That is, this will be the result of a single transposition, this one, and apply a transposition once again with either the same key or a different key and get the result. So it's basically applying the same thing again to make the security more stronger. Fine? Yes or no? But why are we doing this? Just read this once. The single columnar transposition can still be attacked if the attacker has very strong computing resources available. If the attacker has having a very high end configuration computer, then he can apply brute forcing, he can apply some sort of guessing on that length, because ultimately the length is crucial, right? If I come to know the length of the ciphertext, length of the key, then everything is done. Yes or no? Ultimately you have to guess the length of the key. Even if I don't know the entire key, but still I have got the length of the keys, then also I can try to do something here and there. I can try some random guessing, and ultimately at some point of time, obviously it will take some time to break it, but still it is not impossible to crack as compared to the Vernam cipher. Yes or no? One time pad, sorry. Yes or no? Fine. So it is not completely impossible to break this cipher. We can break it provided we have a lot of patience and a better computer in front of us. So to avoid that, this double transposition cipher was introduced. What they do is they can use the same key or they can use a different key and encrypt the ciphertext of the previous result. Am I clear? So in this case, a different key that is provided, stripe is given in front of you. This key is then converted to the numeric values, and that key will be again applied to the ciphertext of the previous result. Am I clear? Am I making sense? So according to that, we have again written the entire ciphertext row by row, and then we will start encrypting it according to the key given. So it will be ASFCE, NKRER, and so on. So this will be my new ciphertext. Am I clear? Fine. I'm not showing the decryption part again because it is exactly the same thing. You have to first of all count the total characters over here. That is again coincidentally 30, and divide that by the key length 6. We will get 5 characters. So you will start filling up this according to the key, and you will get back the plain text. Am I clear? Yes. So what we need to do is you need to apply the same method again with either the same key, but I don't think same key makes some sense because it is simply adding extra uh, overload to the existing cipher. So you can make use of a different key. That is the best possible option. Fine. So make use of a different key and encrypt the plain text. In this case, the previous ciphertext is now your plain text, right? So encrypt the same message again and again, you will get the result of the double transposition cipher. Is it clear? Any doubts so far? Kindly let me know. A division, B division. Okay, fine. Okay. So we still have 10 minutes. So what I will do is kindly take this as a homework. Not homework, you still have time. Try to solve this and let me know the answer. The plain text is given. Spartans are coming, hide your wife and kids. So these sort of messages were used to be sent earlier. The first key is given, second key is also given. So start solving it. What I will do is I will simply delete this. Now you might have some doubts. Okay, so now start solving it. I've given the plain text. Obviously, you have to ignore the spaces and the punctuation marks. Consider only the characters. That is, Spartans are coming. Hide your wife and kids. This is your plain text. Start solving and give me answers. Come on. You still have 10 minutes. हो जाएगा 10 मिनट में. That is why I deleted that entire key. Hush. In this case, as you can see, the key one and key two both are having similar characters, right? So alphabetically, which one to write first? Yes or no? So let's have a look. What needs to be done is whichever A you encounter first, obviously A is not repeating, but T is repeating. So from the left hand side, you are encountering this T first. So that will be given order 5. And the next T will be given order 6. Am I clear? Same thing happens with this O. This O is the second character from the left. So that will be given higher precedence as compared to this O. So it becomes 1, 2, 3. Sorry, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Am I clear? Same thing happens with Sparta. The first A will be given priority first. As you can see, this one is given priority 1. And this A is given priority 2. Am I clear? Yes or no? Because this is what basically happens in the exam. A lot of mistakes happen over here. So whichever A is from coming from the whichever A is present from the left hand side first, that is given the first priority. Okay, so let's start solving now and give me the answers. I will show you the answers at the end of the lecture. So start solving. I have added this field in the feedback form. So you need to write your answers in the feedback form. Based upon that, I will give you attendance. So quickly solve it and answer it. Thank you. Don't share the answers over here. Don't share it in the chat box. I will send you the feedback form. That is the attendance form. Enter your answers over there only. I will give you 10 minutes extra because I guess your next lecture is postponed. So I will give you 10 minutes extra after this lecture. Complete the problem and write the answers in the form. Rishabh, changes as in it doesn't matter. That is what I told you. You simply skip the punctuation marks and the spaces. You avoid that. Ignore that. Continue from there only. There only. Okay. Kindly find the attendance link. Give your answers and then submit. I will share the PDF in your classroom. There you can check your answers afterwards. Fine. So that's it for this lecture. Let's conclude this lecture. So we have seen in this lecture how to differentiate between a substitution cipher and a transposition cipher, how they are different from each other, what is the significance of a keyless and a keyed transposition cipher, how is one-time pad considered to be the most secure of all the ciphers so far, but still it has got its limitations in the form of resource management, etc., etc. So thank you, thanks a lot. Let's meet in the next lecture.